It's live now, I guess.
Yes.
Neil, can we start?
Yes, please.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. The DeepTech Club Confluence. It is after a long time because of the COVID, we could not do it. So I'll just make a small context setting, and then I'll pass it on to Bharat, who's gonna be the leader for today. He's gonna be the navigator and driver for the whole discussion today. So DeepTech Club, those who are new to the system, this is a flagship DeepTech supporting program by NASSCOM, started 3.5 years back, and have been running in a very limited manner till last year. We recently, planned to make it the real face of deep tech industry in India, and with bringing some of the relevant partners, and IIT Kanpur C3I Hub is one of our partner, and then there are other partners from corporate and the academic side. Confluence is the DeepTech Club Confluence is a series of demo day. We don't do a one-off demo day for the startups that we have in the community. It's a highly curated community of the deep tech product founders. So here we are, we are on the day one, and day one is all about cybersecurity and fintech. And so after we have this session by some of the industry experts, and then followed by some enterprise connects one-on-one meeting between the startups and the enterprises, very senior people, and then investors meeting these founders. So in all, we have today some 250 plus one-on-one meetings scheduled between the startups and enterprises and the investors, and these are all one-on-one. So that's the whole essence of DeepTech Club Confluence, which is again all about showcasing the capabilities of the deep tech capabilities of this country to the investor as well as to the enterprise world for the partnerships. So one hygiene question, hygiene suggestion to all of you. The sessions, while the session is on, the moderator Bharat has requested that if the audience have a question, please text it in the chat section. So we'll keep on taking the questions at the right time, because we don't want to break the flow. So Bharat will pick the question at the wherever it fits well. Moving on to the session, I would like to now invite Bharat Panchal, who is a veteran leader in cybersecurity space, worked with so many fantastic organizations like Citibank, Kotak, NPCI, and now so Bharat is now leading is part of the FIS Global. Bharat is also associated with C3I Hub, IIT Kanpur, which is the central agency for driving the cybersecurity agenda of the central government. So Bharat, without wasting much of time, I would now like to pass it on to you to take the session ahead and invite rest of the speakers for the session. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sunil. And it's been great pleasure to be with the August audience. And first of all, let me convey my greetings to all of you of Krishna Janmashtami. It's a holy day today for Lord Krishna's birth. So let's enjoy the day in this universe of Krishna. When I have to be with this great panel, it's like a bagpiper moment for me, because all are my great friends, Vishal, Mohit, Ranjit, and Saket. I mean, none of them need introduction about what they are, what they've achieved, and what kind of history they have set. But for the sake of small introduction, I start with Vishal, very dear friend to me. He is a CISO and cybersecurity practice head for Infosys. But if I have to just give a short introduction about him, when we were in KG or kind of very premature stage of security, he himself sat as a leader of security 15-20 years ago when he was in Standard Chartered Bank or SDFC. So he himself is a benchmark of security in this country, especially banking and the BFSS sector. The kind of respect and stature what he carries, I think we are much below to his stature. So that's Vishal Salvi, very dear friend to me. Coming to a boy who is looking very smart always. He joined with us from California, but another dear friend to me, Saket Modi. At the time when teacher was teaching him, he taught lesson back to his teacher by hacking a teacher's computer at the age of 12, 13 years, and the rest is history. I mean, I can assure you, I can guarantee you that if he has been there in the US, probably he would have already reached to a unicorn club much before than what he is going to be. But Saket and myself have, traveled together for the whole security journey in digital India in last 1 decade, and we've seen, a lot of challenges. We have overcome with a lot of challenges, and kind of benchmark Saket has set by introducing safe security in country is a phenomenal. Mohit Gulati, I think another great man, and he's always been kind to be with us, and give us a lot of insight about what investors think, because we are talking about startup, fintech, and all sort of rosy picture. But when it comes to bet money on somebody's product or somebody's idea, how diligently he think, how differently he think from the investor perspective. So he brings completely different perspective, and he had the IT growth fund, and he has done phenomenal successful investment in his life. Great to have you, Mohit, with us. And last but not least, Ranjit Mishra, the man behind the 3CI hub of IIT Kanpur, Air Force veteran, turned to professional, and currently he's a chief, industrial relations officer of IIT Kanpur 3CI hub. And that's a place where we see many such, great idea going to be incubated, and they are going to be future of cybersecurity. So that's Ranjit Mishra. I think that's a great panel today. I'm fortunate to lead this panel discussion, and I'm sure you all will be much benefited by this discussion. So I will definitely come to your question throughout the session. Whenever you have, please put it on your chat box, and I will point to a respective speaker. But let us begin with the digital transformation or digital disruption, what we are talking today. One thing has been changed post or during pandemic, that technology has become necessity than luxury, because now everything is online, be it academia, be it professional, be it service industry, everything. So this digital disruption, one of the key aspects of this whole digital disruption is the integration of many systems, many data sources, many things which come together. And definitely when so many systems come together, it brings lots of risks. Let me start with Vishal, because he's a stalwart of this industry. So Vishal, can you please share your initial view about how this so-called digital disruption has made a change in our life? And as a security professional, what challenges you have came across, or what challenges you foresee with the current digital disruption? Vishal.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you so much, Bharat, for having us here today. I think there are obviously various dimensions or point of views through which you can look at how the digital ecosystem is evolving. In fact, I believe that time has come when we need to start talking about digital security and not cyber security anymore, because that is a more appropriate name and gives us a more razor-sharp focus in terms of the topic that this whole domain is all about. But I think one thing I think is important, and I've been talking about this regularly now, is there's a need to take a step back and recognize that the digital ecosystem, and within that the cybersecurity and digital security ecosystem has done extraordinarily well in this again extraordinary times of pandemic, right? Because overnight we had to pivot towards working from home and change our architecture and scale our architecture to allow that connectivity to happen. And we are not just talking about just connectivity, but we're talking about trusted connectivity. And the fact that the world has been still okay to pivot to this new way of doing things without having any doubts or any mistrust in this is itself we have done well. So I think we need to maybe pat on the back both the technology teams and the cybersecurity teams that because of the the foundational work that we have been doing it for so many years, we've been able to reap the benefits of that, right? That's number one. The second part, I think, is in terms of one is in terms of what's happening within the organization in terms of the connectivity ecosystem, interdependency, and how the future of tech is going to be. And the second is in terms of what's happening to the connectivity models and the dispersion of the devices, the dispersion of data, the migration of the data centers into the cloud, and even the organization and data center centric security architecture moving into the cloud and moving to the edge, right? With the sense, so cyber is all about being sentient, right? It is all about being able to sense and collect data and then do something about it. Both in terms of sensing as well as in terms of orchestrating the information coming around on threat intelligence and other things, and then trying to do something to manage those threats as we observe them in any of the endpoints. So clearly there has been a tectonic shift, that has happened because the orchestration has moved to the cloud and the enforcement has moved to the edge, right? So that I think is a significant change, more in terms of the connectivity. I think on the part related to the ecosystem and interconnectivity, we are obviously in the exciting times and also challenging times. Exciting times because we are now talking about adoption of containers, adoption of hybrid cloud, adoption of mobile, which has been around, but I think it's happening in a very different way right now. But I think also we talk about data lakes, we talk about the way in which we talk about agile development and how the future of software-defined everything is going to happen. I think it is exciting from a tech point of view, but at the same time challenging from a cybersecurity point of view, because you not only have to train your teams to really understand what's happening and be able to manage the security of that, but the traditional models of enforcing security are no longer applicable, right? So you need to do hyper automation. You need to do security as a code, security as a software as a code, software as a policies, software as you have to put software to everything. You cannot scale otherwise to the rapidly changing way in tech is going to be managed in today as well as the future. So there is a significant challenge in front of us. Security is changing in a very, very fundamental way. And even the traditional models of ISO 27000 are not able to withstand this. They're crumbling down. And so we need to ask ourselves, do we need to really continue to look at ISO audits and other things and give us assurance, or start looking at a different model to get assurance on security? So those are some of the thoughts. I know I can go on, but in interest of time, I'll give it back to you, Bharat.
Thank you, Vishal. I think one of the important point what I got from you that unlike other medical and paramedical people, those who have really done fantastic job during pandemic, same credit goes to the IT people as well, because during all this pandemic, the supply chain, be it medical or be it banking, I think we haven't seen a major breakdown in any of the system. At least IT dependency was huge, rather phenomenally increased overnight, but that has withstand or sustained in this huge demand. But at the same time, while we are talking about the challenges and when we understand certain aspect, especially around the risk being faced, as you rightly say that it is completely new risk overnight because of the paradigm shift from work from office to work from home. One of the important elements in the digital adoption is how an organization can build trust in the mechanism, because security is all about, and I need not to tell anything about security to you, but let me bring in Saket Modi. Saket, what is required today is a mechanism that can build trust, because at the end of the day, a customer is always looking for one assurance. Is my information safe? Is my money safe? Is my product safe? In that case, when it comes to customer, that implies that the organization need to look at adopting new technology for safety, security, and it is not over, one time affair. It is a continuous, because the technology dynamic, thus security is also dynamic. In that case, can you please share your insight about how the paradigm shift is taken place in terms of security as well, along with the technology, and what should be the best way to manage cost, benefit, and even with cost and benefit, the paradigm, paramount requirement, how we can give that assurance back to customer that yes, you are in safe hand.
Thank you, Bharat. And firstly, I want to start by thanking you for having me here. It's truly an honor to be a part of this panel. There are such incredible, I would call all of you guys legends. And for me as a young first-time entrepreneur, it's truly an honor. So thank you for the opportunity, Bharat. Vishal sir already set the bar very high, so I'll try to match up to that in terms of my views around cybersecurity and the assurance part, which you mentioned, Bharat. Let's divide cybersecurity into two parts, cyber and security, right? And let's talk about both. So let's first talk about cyber, or digital in a slightly more amplified fashion. I like this line which the CEO of PayPal said, that during the pandemic, we went from being Flintstones to Jetsons in 9 months. Right. So if you watch the cartoon, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And very rightly so. And it's not just the 9 months. If you actually slightly go back in time, and I'm talking about the late 90s, technology was always a back office enabler, right? So you always had ERP automation. You always had ways by which you will automate and increase the efficiency of the back office. That was what the 90s was all about, right? Early 2000s was all about how do we get the internet, right? You had, for the first time, internet reaching out to so many people, and there was a big revolution around the internet. From 2010 to 2020 has really been the mobile phone revolution, right? So you actually had cell phones, and today India has more than 600 million smartphones and over 1 billion cell phones, right? And the global count of cell phones itself has crossed 7 billion already, while there are 7 billion people on the planet. So if you think about it, and smartphones, obviously 3.5 to 4 billion smartphones. So the point I'm making there is that if you see, we went from back office automation to technology coming closer and closer to us, whether it's personally or professionally. And today in 2021, we are at that point where, and especially with the pandemic, you can hardly imagine any aspect of any industry doing any work. You can't almost imagine it without technology, right? And technology can be in any shape or form. So if you see, technology has transformed from completely a back office automation all the way to not only the front office, but it's become the primary medium in which you communicate with your customers. You give them the right experiences. Your cash has become from hard paper to virtual currencies, for that matter, right? And Bharat, you are one of the champions who has seen the whole transition. So the point I'm making there is, while that happened to cyber, when you look at security, unfortunately, security is still not transformed the way it should have. Security used to be reactive, which was always the case, and very rightly so. It was reactive, and it was meant for geeks and nerds, right? It was meant for people who are in IIT Kanpur studying computer science and can really deep dive into an AES 256 encryption algorithm and go ahead and break that and make it safer, etc., which was very rightly so, and you still need that. But unfortunately, that was because technology was used by a very limited set of people. Remember, internet was actually invented by the US Army as ARPANET, and then it proliferated everywhere. So when only few people were using it, which were very highly technical, which were the scientists in the army, it was okay for a few people to do the security. But technology suddenly the blast radius of that has gone to like 3 to 4 billion people very easily, that the internet is touching. Technology is a much bigger radius. Security, unfortunately, has remained very siloed, and you still have a lot of jargons, and you still have a very, very niche understanding of what security means. And I would say that's the big challenge today, Bharat, where, we are still reactive. We are still, in fact, most companies where we talk to, and of course, you guys do this much more than I do, the biggest project that a lot of companies, majority of them, even if they're slightly moved beyond what Vishal sir said at the ISO 27001, where we have a SOC and we have a SIM. But if you think about it, the fundamental meaning of a SOC and a SIM is reactive, because it's reactively telling you, are you being hacked right now? It doesn't tell you, can you be hacked in the future? So we have to go to a predictive way, and in a way which is quantified. And it's happened in other industries, if you think about it, right? So if you talk about healthcare, when you get a blood test report, you actually get hemoglobin count and a number and a range, and whether you can trust, and whether you're okay or not. Unfortunately, that's not the case with cyber. You're dialing it from your laptop. If I asked you how secure your laptop is, you don't have a real-time answer. How secure is your cell phone? You don't have an answer, at least in a real-time way. And that is where the world needs to go to, Bharat, in my view. It needs to go from reactive to predictive. And that's where using the next 10 years will be about how can you use data to leverage intelligence out of it. And that's where your artificial intelligence and machine learning comes in. So that's just at a 40,000 feet of what I think about cyber security and assertiveness on technology, Bharat.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Sagar. It's a very nice perspective you put in. And when you touch upon the reactive to reactive or preemptive, I think we have a long way to go. You are absolutely right. Because, my medical report, I can't get a report of my laptop and say, hey, I'm going to be hacked or not. But, again, that requires a lot of innovation. And probably we are surrounded with a lot of buzzword around us about the innovation in fintech and the WhatsApp moment of UPI. I think we all are a witness to that. The day when we launched on 11th of April 2016, we definitely envisaged that UPI is going to be a game changer, but we never envisaged that it will be so soon. I mean, 4 billion transactions a month is not a small thing in a country like India. But we have had a lot of innovation to happen. But when we are talking about the innovation, we heard about CBDC, the central bank digital currency or cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, and so many things. One point of time, I'm even thinking that are we reaching to an innovation saturation in terms of fintech? But when we think from the security perspective, probably that become completely a negative thought. No, we are nowhere near to saturation for innovation in terms of fintech security. But let me bring in the investor, because eventually you need money to materialize your dream or materialize your innovative ideas. Mohit Gulati said, as a fund manager, do you see that there's a lot of room about fintech innovation, especially in security? And when you look all this possibility, obviously you always see risk versus reward and opportunity versus the risk involved with that. So I want to know from you, can we safely take existing trend of innovation in terms of fintech and cybersecurity, and can we extrapolate them into the prediction when it comes to investment in fintech? Because eventually money run everything. It's not the other way around. So your views, Mohit.
Thanks, Bharat. You spoke about you used a word which said saturation. I think I'll beg to differ on that one, right? I think we've just started the innovation curve. What we're doing with the central bank CBDC, that's a game changer of a different kind, right? Just to put numbers into perspective, between 2014 to 2021, close to 24 lakh crores was transferred to about 800 million Indians directly into their bank accounts. But the problem is, once it goes there, where that money is actually used, nobody has any traceability around it, because it can always go, you can go to the bank and encash that money and move on. So a lot of that money even gets pilfered despite the DBT being there. What, a blockchain-based currency, which is backed by the central bank, which only say if I'm giving you, money only to buy seeds, then you can actually only buy it with seeds, because I can protect and ring fence that currency only to do that particular transaction. I think the fintech, the part of, I think in India, fin was there, but there was no tech earlier. Now we have the right fin and we have the right tech. The fin will actually be able to be monitored, right? Your cash and your capital that's there in your bank account will be able to be monitored. and you can actually use it, and you know exactly where your currency is going. I don't think any country in the world of the size of India, or even close to India's size, can even envisage doing something like this. What we're trying to build. Club this with UPI, club this with all the innovation that we've done. I think India is going to have like the mecca of all bull runs in the next 10 years. And if our stock markets are, and I don't want to be speculative in the stock markets, but if you look at Nifty at 16,800 today, things look expensive. But clearly, I think the view is you're taking a 10-year view on India, and you say that this is going to be the world's best performing country because regulation is fine here. There is, at least till 2024, there is political stability here. We have some, I'm not saying we are a country which is completely marred, which is completely, free of any sort of geopolitical problems. We do have our set of problems, but I think there's just so much that we're going to capture in the next 5 to 10 years. So as an investor in the fintech space, I think the party has just begun. I see HDFC Bank up for disruption. I see Bajaj Finance up for disruption because there are going to be so many new players playing a completely different game, completely data backed, being able to lend to the right people at the right time. I think that alone is going to be a possibility which will have like 15 startups coming in. So I think we are in a golden age of fintech for the next 10 years. I don't want to be speculative around cryptocurrencies. They have their use cases in a lot of countries. There has been a lot of commercial application of it. With every currency, there's always a negative side. Even with the physical notes that you have, there's a joke in the US, right? For every $100 note that you pick up, there's the chance of that note being drug money is 110% higher, right? So that's the same with India. You can look at currency the way you want to, but I think as you start building it on a blockchain, there is a lot more accountability, there's a lot more traceability, and that will just change the way India consumes. So extremely bullish on the way fintech is evolving.
Superb. I think, when an investor say that we are the golden age of fintech revolution, what more confidence you need? I mean, that's a confidence what you got for us, Mohit. But, we heard Vishal talking about the current challenges. Saket was talking about, how solution side, he is also bullish. And you as an investor, you are also bullish. But when it comes to startup, the larger issue, what in my view, what I've seen that, when whole recipe is ready, there has to be a taker, there has to be a buyer. And probably one of the my own experience is that when a product is indigenous, made in India, we all look at, with a very suspicious way that it is desi. So it may be, we have our mindset, okay, it may be deteriorated compared to the rest of the world. I think that is one of the biggest hindrance. But when it comes to, when it comes to startup, fintech startup, the kind of risk what they face, that impact the entire venture. And let me bring Ranjit from IIT Kanpur, who runs the 3CI Hub, because, view of the scenario of startup, and I'm sure Mohit also faced it, or Saket also faced, and I'm part of both of the journey. I've seen how they were struggled in their initial days, that there is no guarantee that whatever you have for your product, there'll be a good market and there'll be a good customer. There's no assurance that the people will buy a product. Same time, you need to borrow a hefty money to finance your venture at the earliest stage where no one is ready to pick up your hand and support. So that's the biggest hurdle for any startup. And on top of that, the kind of perception about the Indian startup, that is completely deteriorating. Ranjit, can you please tell us that how 3CI Hub at IIT Kanpur is planning to change this perception of innovator who wants to come forward and work for the Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India product, which can take leapfrog for rest of the world? Can you please talk your thought about that?
Sure, Bharat. Thank you so much. First of all, let me share my gratitude to all the panelists. I think so. This is a great platform to share, what a research institute or leading technology institute like IIT Kanpur are, working upon. And as a government, India has realized that time has come, as you rightly said, that we need to have our own indigenous desi, technology companies, and we should not depend upon the foreign multinational technologies, especially when it comes to cybersecurity and securing our national critical assets. So I think one of the mission of C3 Hub at IIT Kanpur, apart from we have 4 major areas, but one of the main mission objective is to incubate startups in cybersecurity and cybersecurity of cyber physical system. Because if you look at our critical infra, the cyber physical system becomes the primary target. So that challenge has been given to C3 Hub. And I think the biggest challenge for any early stage startup, which we have seen in our experience with the first cohort, is that, or any innovator, is that their initial prototype of financial support. And most of the startups, they struggle with their, how do you get that financial support for prototype development? And we here at IIT Kanpur, with the help of Government of India, basically Department of Science and Technology, has funded us. And our primary objective is to basically help and support these aspiring entrepreneurs, not only for their prototype development in terms of the initial cost, but also take care of their monthly running costs by providing them monthly fellowship for the period of 2 years. Because obviously when you you also have to run your house, right? So basically we do both in parallel. And our aim is to make sure our startup innovators focus on their strength, which is innovation, their product development, the product innovation, and rest we take care as a technology innovation hub with our partner first, which is an incubator. And all startups which are incubating with us, which incubate with us, they have access to the larger ecosystem in terms of state-of-the-art lab, test bed access. We have faculty and the alumni access for regular mentorship programs. And then also we work with our industry partner for continuous business mentorship programs. And as a country, I think the biggest challenge what we see today is we depend too much on technologies which we import from foreign MNCs, especially the sensitive cybersecurity, which is very, very sensitive. And I think government has realized that kind of attacks happening today on primarily on our critical assets, critical infrastructure assets, and which can really damage our economy. So I think this time has come that governments have realized that now we have to develop and own our indigenous technologies, and for that C3 has taken this challenge, not only to invite these aspiring entrepreneurs, but also incubate them. Like a baby, you basically help them build up their prototype, and then sail them through a journey where they can be on their own and not only sell to the customers in India, but also export technologies. So I think we need to follow some of the best countries like US, Israel, which have given the that kind of ecosystem support for their startups. And I'm really fortunate and feel privileged that I got this opportunity to work with some of the leading professors, Professor Maninder Agarwal and Professor Deep Shukla, to lead this initiative to get these startups on board. And unfortunately, in our last cohort, where you were part of our evaluation committee, we have done, we have incubated 13 startups, and now we have launched second cohort, and we'll be doing another 27 startups to add on our list, basically. So I really feel that time has come that institute like IIT Kanpur and other leading institutes should take a lead and work closely with not only industry partners, but also with end customers, and to create this ecosystem for startups. So that's some of the thoughts which I think from your perspective.
Great, Ranjit. I think at least two people, Ranjit and Mohit, has given enough of confidence that for startup probably achhe din are already begin or about to begin. So I think that is one good confidence we gain out of this two gentlemen's point. But let me bring in Vishal again, because when it comes to cost and regulation, he has seen not only banking industry, but being a cybersecurity practice head of Infosys, he has seen so much of industry, and he can bring in different perspective. So Vishal, we touch upon, during your talk or Saket or Mohit, we touch upon about the acceleration caused by digital adoption in India, and especially during pandemic. You also mentioned that how well we manage it. But given the pace, we are definitely seeing the challenges being faced by organization, ranging from increasing technology costs, because naturally, the closed environment which we used to work earlier, now it is completely distributed. The containers came in, the cloud came, hybrid came, lot many things. And on top of that, the security is completely out of your control. It has gone into individuals' houses. Now, in that case, the enhanced monitoring of managing cyber risk, the cost has gone phenomenally. Regulator were never kind, and they will never be kind. They will not take the circumstances into consideration, but they want to make sure that we will remain always secure in any situation. And therefore, probably RBI has also come out with a digital security control framework very recently. So can you please share some of insight on how various industries are gearing up for these challenges to manage security, manage regulatory requirement, and the current pandemic situation? What is your view about the preparedness among industries?
So Bharat, I think, again, I'll try to kind of give the answer from a different perspective. I think the first is that, if you look at the way the Indian IT services industry was tracking our business, right? And maybe around 5 or 6 years back, we said that, we will have something which is core and the other which is digital, right? In the last 5 years, and the whole the IT services industry has been reporting the business, and already digital business has grown to more than 70-75% of the total business, right? So the amount of change which has happened in the last 5 years from core to digital has been humongous. And so much so that now we are not anymore talking about digital and core. We are now going to talk about what does that digital mean. So, and cyber obviously is an important component of that larger digital piece. In fact, cyber security is 100% digital, right? So this is one aspect I think we should recognize, that the business itself has changed, and IT is no longer the traditional core IT. It's now seen more of a business driving technology, right? So we can't imagine any business model without tech deeply integrated in it, right? And Mohit talked about the amount of disruption that can happen in fintech, but these disruptions are happening in all industries. We talk about healthcare, we talk about manufacturing, we talk about, in fact, the automobile industry is saying that we want to be known as a software company which also makes cars, right? And so software, I think, is the new alchemy, as we call it, right? So that, I think, changes, definitely going to keep on giving us very exciting things in future, right? Some of the things which we can't even imagine right now. But I think so digital or technology is no longer seen as a cost center, which is really how the technology was seen earlier. It is actually now the business. It is the core business model, right? And so it's not seen as a cost. It will be always seen as an investment, right? And that change is happening in a very fundamental way. So that is one aspect, right? Now your question about regulations and security as a cost, and how do we sort of look at that? See, the reality is regulations or compliance is always going to be reactive, and it is always a postmortem, right?
Yeah.
So regulations will only come when a regulator sees that there are certain fundamental systemic risks which the businesses are ignoring and are not focusing on, and therefore now I need to come out with the regulation, because otherwise it will go, systemic risk will manifest into something which is unmanageable and untenable, right? So that's really the function of regulation. So generally speaking, regulations would be anything between 1 year to 3 years late compared to where the risks are. Okay. So the inherent problem with that is that sometimes when you are trying to do risk management for your organization and you want to do compliance, they may not be fully aligned together. So you would be doing compliance for the sake of keeping the regulator happy, and you will also need to do, and you need to still do your risk management, because that is really what we need to do. And then depending on which industry, which geography you are, you would end up doing a significant part of your role as a CISO doing compliance, and then whatever time is left, you will actually do,
something on security.
So that is the dilemma, right? And depending on which industry you would be, changing. So for example, in the banking industry, the percentage could be as high as 70% compliance and 30% other things. In the IT services industry, it will be 100% cybersecurity.
Yes.
Because there is, you obviously need to comply, but you need to comply to your contractual obligations, your legal obligations, because you're, supporting, various countries, various geographies, various type of customers. But you're still doing what is right, from a security point of view, and you don't. So in a way, it's not 100%. I would say that there is still 20% of compliance work, but it's something which is still manageable, right? So I think there is a need to see how we can simplify and align this together. Okay, there is a very radical thinking, about, or more of like a idealistic thinking about, why do we need so many regulations? Why do we need so many frameworks? Why do we need so many, geographical, specific requirements? Because that will all create cost. And because of that cost, it creates overheads, right? If you just imagine a world where we have simplified regulation, one single policy, one single framework that everybody needs to follow. Like, for example, we have it for PADSS, for example, payment card industry, PADSS and PCIDS is a universally recognized standard. And for whatever reason, I think for last, it has simplified the payment card industry security standard. You don't need to really try and do various things. And even now, every application which is developed complies to that one standard. So imagine a world where everything follows that one framework or standard. It will be much simpler to do. But like I said, it's idealistic thinking. It is not going to happen tomorrow. But I think it's important for folks like us in forums like this to talk about it, so that we recognize that as a problem and an overhead which we need to do without, so that compliance aligns with the goals of what the risk management objectives of the organizations are. So that's really, my views on compliance and cost of compliance.
Thanks. I think you put very right pointer about the security is no more a cost center. It is an investment. And I think just to add into that somebody asked about return on investment in security. That means till the time you are not hacked, that is your ROI. And but with all said and done, the ecosystem is getting bigger and bigger. The risk landscape really, I myself have seen as a one of the change agent in the digital transformation of this country, that what we used to face challenges in 2011 and 12, and after one decade, it has gone phenomenally completely different today, because the first are always coming with the new exploit, the new areas, new method. And in India, I think one of the dilemma or kind of limitation for us, that what kind of fraud what we see in our country, probably it is nowhere available in the world. So it's very difficult to benchmark. So Saket, can you just bring some perspective in the change threat landscape, because it has changed with a lot of new threat vector, like ransomware is all around now. Everybody is facing those challenges. So how do you see the new gen technology about cyber security or cyber risk management keeping the pace with the threat? Because in earlier talk you touched upon about AI and ML and predictive analytics, but what is the realistic scenario? What Vishal was talking about the idealistic scenario from regulation, but when it comes to technology, it has to be always realistic and preemptive in nature. So, can you give your views about those technology and the cost benefit of that?
Certainly, Bharat. And, let me actually do this. Let me actually tie a few of you guys on this answer, Bharat, right? People always ask me this question, and I see this all the time when you do a startup, right? Where do you get your idea from? Because what you're asking is, Bharat, how do you know what you're thinking, or anybody who's thinking of a startup or a new idea, how real it is from an application perspective, right? What will really matter or what will not matter, right? And the answer is actually pretty straightforward and simple, right? And the answer is ask your customers. And I'll explain you what I mean by that, right? And let me take a few of the examples of the panelists that I have, and I'll take a few minutes just to give you my own story, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this, because it is such a relevant forum to share this story. So we are a startup which is incubated from IIT Bombay, right? So when Ranjit was talking about, incubation and nurturing it, treating it like a baby, I still remember IIT Bombay telling me, and their CEO of the incubation cell telling me, Saket, you're not doing a very smart thing by running a services company. You got to change into a product company, and you should think of a more scaled up solution, etc., etc. And I still remember the young, arrogant me, and saying, ma'am, I know what I'm doing. Trust me, there are such huge services company. I will build a big services company, and you will see that, etc., etc. We were doing services. I still remember, Bharat, again, we got connected because of services, because we did your, pen testing, vulnerability assessment, during some very critical times. But I was not very smart to listen in that. I would say I missed a few years of our evolution because I did not listen. But again, the kind of stuff that I learned from my incubator, it means the world to us. Then Bharat, your story, and I'm not asked you this, but I'm going to still share it with the people because they understand what a huge impact people like you can make to young startup entrepreneurs like us. I still remember thinking of the idea of quantifying the cyber risk, because we predict breaches, right? We go to companies and predict breaches. I still remember walking into your NPCI Capitol building office, and you were always very kind with your time and generous with your time. You always used to host me there whenever I was in Bombay. And I remember walking to you and I said, I'm jumping all the time. So I was sitting in your cabin and I say, Bharat, this is what I'm thinking. I've heard of these things where I want to put in, these APIs together and predict the likelihood of a breach. And I want to do that as a product, as a SaaS company. And I still remember asking you this question that, Bharat, there is this big investor who wants to put in money into us, and this is the terms that, he's giving us. What do you think, First, should I do the startup in terms of the product idea? And the second thing, do you think these are the fair terms? Because you see so many startups. And I still remember, he said that, you told me that, Saket, you reminded me of an Amitabh Bachchan movie, which I've never seen. And I know it was a very famous movie. And you said that, Muqaddar Ka Sikandar. And you told me that, Saket, it has a very famous scene. And I still remember that line which you mentioned. Saket, the actress, when the brother of Amitabh Bachchan comes to her and says that, I will pay you 10 crore rupees, just go out of the life of my brother. And she takes out the picture of Amitabh Bachchan and says, "Itne mein to main iski tasveer bhi na bechu." And that was a big moment for me. I had the chief risk officer of India's most apex forward-looking payment body telling me that, Saket, your idea is so valuable that if somebody is asking you for these terms, I would not even, they are throwing peanuts at you. Don't take that. And we did not take that investment, if you remember, thanks to your advice. At the same time, you saying that, do this will work. I remember the two people who made a big impact while we were starting. This was 3.5 years back, 4 years back, right? We were very, very early in building the product. One was you, the other was the chief technology officer of PayPal. When I spoke to him, he said, look, I will invest into you, take my money, right? So when Bharat Panchal in India and when the CTO of PayPal in San Jose are both saying that this is a huge problem which is not being solved, I said, boss, I don't need any more validation. I have two extreme ends of the world, both telling me that jump right in and make things happen. Now, ideas are great. You always want to execute that, right? How do you actually bring that to execution? That's where Vishal sir comes in, right? So Vishal sir, again, we are so proudly partners with Infosys, and we actually cracked our, one of the largest $1 million deals in the United States, thanks to Infosys, thanks to Vishal sir, right? So we went to Vishal sir, and again, I've known him. He's been again very kind with his time since his HDFC Bank days. I still remember sitting in his cabin so many times. And now that he's with Infosys, right, we carried that relationship, and he's been so kind and generous that even if you're a young company, young startup, he's actually enabled his whole team, which is taking my product to the market. As a small company, we can never dream of the access that an Infosys will have, because they've been there for decades and there's this massive relationship. So again, if you think about it, incubated from, an IIT Bombay, raised funds along the way, and that's where Mohit comes in, validated the idea from a real customer, that's where Bharat comes in, and then scaled it up with an Infosys which is out there. It's like a perfect thing. And at least I know that there are a ton of entrepreneurs out there. I mean, you literally have people on the call because of which we are today worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That's because of these people. I just wanted to put it out there, Bharat, because I know we are almost through with the time. But again, that's the reason I can't be thankful enough for everything that you guys have done. So,
excellent.
Bharat,
I think you brought it, the famous dialogue, but Mohit comes with this scenario all the time, because yeah, that was a great moment. You just recall about Ignameto Kastvin Abechu. When the investor comes and they have money on table, and the other hand you have idea, it is always a trade-off. But when it comes to investor, to whether to bet money on this product or not, that is always a dilemma. And I don't know how do they. I just pass on that advice just out of curiosity. That it's not a great deal you should. But Mohit, when you are asked to bet money on some idea, be it Saket's ideas or Vishal's or my idea, they were part of our relation. But when you analyze that, how do you do your own risk management? Because it's ultimately hard-earned money, which you are a trustee of somebody's money putting on somebody's idea. So can you please tell us that how do you decide on where to bet, where not to bet in terms of fintech investment?
Awesome. I'm actually going to take it from where Saket left it, because in fact Saket and I did speak. I don't know if he remembers way back in 2014 when he was raising his first round. Saket, the company was called something else back then, right? It was with L.
Lucidius.
Yes, and we changed the name to the name of the product, Safe. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a funny story, right? There's Saket, explaining to me, and sorry, Saket, I'm just taking this example because now I think it's relevant since you've already given your story.
Of course.
So Saket comes and pitch. Of course, he was extremely bubbly. I would say a little naive at that time, and those are the things that as investors you're looking for, right? You're looking at an entrepreneur, you're saying, okay, is there immaturity in understanding, or is there going to be a curve of learning post which one should come in? And there are multiple factors that get counted when you're looking at risk, particularly while investing in early stage. You're looking at the product, you're looking at the person. For me, when I looked at your company, Saket, I was sold on the person, but on the product, the push strategy that, it was almost like I'm watching Aaj Tak and saying, चैन से सोना है तो जाग जाइए, साइबर सिक्योरिटी आपके सर पे है, आपका फोन सेफ नहीं है, आपका कुछ भी सेफ नहीं है. So that part, right, for me, where you were actually wanting to go to companies and tell them that there is loopholes in your cybersecurity and I'm going to be the one plugging it. That for me was not the right mode. I need companies, and today that's changed, right? Today companies come to you and say, and I know even my own group came to you a few years ago when we had a cybersecurity attack, right? And it was great working with you because we needed your solution. More need-based solutions need to come in, right? So again, going back to that early stage strategy, I think there's no one size fits all. There's always going to be a different mantra for each investment. The last part I just want to sort of leave out with, and Vishal spoke about it, is with regards to the regulators. I've been looking at the fintech space for a very long time. I've been looking at regulation for a long time. I've been working with some of the policymakers for the longest time. I can safely tell you, yes, our regulators are very anal. I think RBI, SEBI, all of them put together. But and one of the very high SEBI officers once explained this to me. He said, "Beta, a retail investor in our country is like my darling child. It's my job at SEBI to make sure that he is protected from anything that can go wrong to him. And in that bid to do that, I am so anal about all the regulations that are there, which is why I make every bank comply. And Vishal sir, you're from HDFC, with due credit to HDFC, they deserved to be on that probation period of 6 months where the credit cards issues were shut, because it was a horrendous tech platform for India's largest bank. And as a regulator, I'm concerned about the citizens who have capital in that bank, right? Till date, I think HDFC's mobile banking app is still not up there, despite being the largest bank in the country. So I think, from the regulation perspective, we probably are a little myopic in thinking from today's side. But if you look at a 10-year or a 20-year horizon, we will emerge as a more stronger economy because of the way our regulations are structured. We don't have too many of these exotic products like what Wall Street has done. For those of you who don't know about this, there's something called a FOMO index on Bloomberg. Wall Street even has something called FOMO index. That if you are missing out on investing in stocks, invest in this index, which will invest in the FANG group of companies. I mean, in India, you can't even think about this. Can you think about having a FOMO index where you'll have, happiest minds and all these crazy stocks which have gone rallying? So I think as a regulation side, we've done a decent job, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a subject matter expert in this. Lastly, just answering your question. Early stage investing or even late stage investing, it's a matter of a bunch of things. Risk, of course, is something that you are looking at. But I think from a venture capital perspective, the risk reward ratio is what you're willing to take. If my risk is decent and my reward upside is high, at least most venture capital investors today are willing to take the bet because of the availability of capital. Thanks, guys.
Great, Mohit. While you're talking about investment and product and security, all, but I have my personal opinion about the growth in terms of innovation is very, very restricted in the government sector, because the government labs at their limited capacity. At the same time, the private sector innovation, and unfortunately, the public and private equity in terms of innovation is yet not seen. I think we are having very small indigenous industry, and as I mentioned earlier, that it is not that attractive scenario for startup to go and sell the product in country. Ranjit, from this 3CI Hub or IIT Kanpur side, do you think it is too late to change the system, or is there a possibility to bring some national, like what Vishal mentioned about the PADSS, the Universal Standard for Payment Security? Is there a need to have a national innovation policy to support the startup in respect? Because again, it should not be IIT Kanpur or C3I, but you go to any academia today, the same problem they are also facing. Would you please bring some focus on the possible innovation policy to support the startup?
I think so. This is a great observation, Bharat. And time has come that Technology Institute and leading academia like IIT Kanpur and other institutes should work closely with government along with selective industry partners for creating such national innovation policy. We should clearly define clear guidelines and action plan for different technology domains like cybersecurity, AI, robotics, and all current and newer technologies which are important for India as a country. Why countries like US and Israel are ahead from the rest of the world, in technology innovation? Because the respective government, they create atmosphere where all aspiring startups can avail funds for creating and developing best innovation, but also they create a system of becoming end user or buyer, right? So that's, I think, very, very important for today for our government. And today, in most of the startups don't take off to commercial stage, as we have discussed here, because they lack enough market to buy their product because of the mindset of the buyer today, as you rightly said, right? The Desi product, right? And now time has come that all users and buyers should they give a chance to all India-based startups for ensuring technical business support which not only create a positive ecosystem for our aspiring startups, but eventually help our nation, building our own technology in the longer run and build up more economy, more jobs, etc. So that's, I think, so in nutshell, what I see is that a good starting point where C3 Hub is leading this way, and probably in all the panelists from different verticals are there, and probably continuing this whole panel, we should work closely to create such national innovation policy, or also some national security, cybersecurity council kind of thing in IT Kanpur.
Great. I think that bring a lot of perspective in terms of our confidence in terms of support to the startup ecosystem. And though we are reaching exactly on dot time for closure of our session, and there are no question, but I have very small rapid fire question to all of you. Let me start with Mohit, because he has a very hard stop to go. So Mohit, recognize there is a pressure to put money to work in 5-year cycle. What study do you think make the most sense right now? Will you invest in fintech startup, or will you invest in blue chip stock or mutual fund for next 5 years?
So for starters, I'll extend the 5 years to 7 years to make more money. So increase the cycle and basically invest in, mutual funds and blue chip stocks. I'm not a firm believer on, because I think each one of them is up for disruption. I would bet on the next leg of great innovations coming out of India, be it in fintech. Vishal spoke about automobiles. I think what Mahindra has showcased with the XUV 700 is literally a glimpse into the future of how Indian automakers are thinking. It's incredible for an Indian automaker to come out with that level of automation, and we've done some deep tech investments which are aiding Mahindra as well as some of the other manufacturers. So I think, like I said, right, 10-year golden phase. Bet on anything in this country and you will make money head over heels. If you have a 5-year fund, extended by 2 years, you'll make more money.
Superb. So nice of you. Mohit, thank you very much for joining with us. I know you have to leave, but we'll be in touch. We are always in touch, and look forward for more interesting session ahead. Thank you very much. Coming back to you, Vishal, just your closing remark. What trend will shape the cybersecurity domain? Because you are the torch bearer of cybersecurity in this country, and your views make a lot of sense for all of us. What's your view on that?
In the immediate term, Bharat, the top 10 trends are all ransomware related. Okay, so the ransomware, I think, is ruling the everything right now, and everybody is only talking about that at the risk of losing out on other aspects. That's number one. I think cloud native security is going to be very, very important. And I think that adoption is going to be very critical. Platformization and platform-driven security is going to be the trend, because organizations are going to find it very hard to buy, integrate, and run security. So just like data centers are moving to hyperscalers, security and point security will move towards cloud-enabled platform-based security services. Cybersecurity or digital security will also now start thinking about human safety because of OT, IoT, and connected everything. So that is going to be something that we have to anticipate and expect. Agile and digital is going to be the future norm in security. And I think, last point is that this demand supply challenge of people and talent in cybersecurity will continue, and it will keep on increasing and becoming more and more acute as we go along, because the demand is going to be much, much more than the supply that we are currently facing.
Indeed. I think that's a very great point you mentioned about the demand supply gap that is really causing problem, not only India, across the world. But let me come back to Saket, and that's the question every board, every senior management, every regulator is asking: how safe we are today and how safe we will be tomorrow. Can you please give some predictability around it?
But that's what I do for a living. And again, that's something that we've been very fortunate to see very closely. The way you can predict a lot of things. For example, today using IBM Watson, you can actually predict lung cancer based on a lot of parameters. If you go to a bank and apply for a loan, they're predicting will you repay your loan or not, based on your credit history, bank balance, net worth, etc., etc. So there are proven algorithms, things like Bayesian network, that you can use to predict a lot of things. The same needs to be applied to cybersecurity. And that's something obviously we've been doing for many years now. And, we've been reasonably successful at doing that across the globe. So that's my views on those lines, Bharat.
Thank you. Thanks. Very nicely put, Saket. So, Ranjit, Mohit was very bullish about the very bright future of the economy of the country. At the same time, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is just not a slogan. And that's what is my belief, that it is a deep sense of self-sustained India in coming years. So can we see that a Chedin for startup is already begun or about to begin very soon?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. This whole, starting takeoff from C3 Hub is a, message which goes back to the market. And I think the government has realized that they cannot work in isolation, in silos, and they have to work with industry partners like, Vishal Salvi's company, startups, successful startups like Saket, and investors like Mohit, and some of the industry experts like you. So I think we have to all work like a family if we really want to build up a great nation and to defend our critical assets. So we all have to come together. And that critical time has come now to all of us to work on this common platform.
So I think that's a great end up of this beautiful session. We all had interacted a lot. Vishal brought completely innovative at unique perspective on the cybersecurity. Saket brought a good sense about predictability. Mohit has his own view about investment, and Ranjit, you bring a lot of sense for the startup to give confidence that there is some system already developed or being developed to support the whole system. I think I'm sure that the audience and all parts, I personally always enjoy to interact with all my dear friends, but I'm sure the audience must have enjoyed. And the coordinator from NASCOM, Sunil, thanks to you for bringing all of us together. It's indeed a great pleasure to speak to all dear friends again. And I'm sure that there are a lot of takeaway from the session. And we cannot change the system overnight, but there is a lot of sense. I personally got that so many things are happening, which will definitely be fruitful maybe in coming years or coming time. But academia, industry, the solution provider, and investor, everyone is bullish. There is a great time ahead for fintech and the cybersecurity. With that, I'm just ending this session. My personal thanks to the organizer, NASCOM, and IIT Kanpur, my fellow panelists. Thanks for joining with me today, and have a nice time ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bharat. You have been a great leader and the moderator for the session.
It's a backfire moment for me because my dear friends are there. It's always like that.
The panelists are all awesome, and we all enjoyed the session. Thank you so much, and wishing all the startups all the best for the rest of the day, because you have some critical meetings aligned for today. So wish you all the best. Thank you so much, Bharat.
Thank you.
And all the panelists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you.